This is a WKYT podcast.
Good morning from WKYT News. I'm Bill Bryant, and we welcome you to Kentucky Newsmakers. Later, we'll be hearing from the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce on how businesses are handling the pandemic and plotting their way back when it's all over. Also, we'll be speaking with U.S. Housing Secretary Ben Carson about an initiative that touches Lexington. But first, COVID-19 is, as you know, a worldwide pandemic. The United Nations is doing what it can to coordinate the response among its partners and the World Health Organization. The UN donated 250,000 masks to some in New York City, the epicenter of the problem here in the U.S. And the UN predicts the economic fallout worldwide will be huge and its impact felt in every country. Serving as UN ambassador at this historic time is Kentuckian Kelly Knight-Craft, who joins us by Skype.
Ambassador, thank you very much for talking with us. You know, we all thought the world had challenges 2 months ago, and now this. Has this situation, in your view, brought the world closer together and therefore exposed the importance of the United Nations in trying to help coordinate a worldwide response to a pandemic?
You know, I think I can answer that in two different responses. First of all, you know, as the president said, we are all in this together, and President Trump has really brought us together in the United States as one big family. And without his leadership, the U.S. would not be as prepared and better equipped to mitigate this virus. As far as the United Nations, what's important within the UN Security Council is that we are maintaining our daily schedule. I just came off of a meeting about Afghanistan and the importance of continuing the peacekeeping troops there. And also yesterday, we just had our meeting on Syria and the importance with the refugees. And that's why with the Secretary General calling for the ceasefire, a global ceasefire, it's really important because the areas that are most affected are the areas of conflict as far as this is how this disease, if you remember from World War I, that's how the Spanish flu really was able to spread, because the areas of conflict are areas that we can't have kind of get health workers in there to be able to help the people. There's disease as it is, but this is actually going to really take its toll. So we are pleading with the global community for a ceasefire, and every day, you know, we are talking as a council. We start at 10, and then we break at 1, and then like today, they'll be back on at 3, just depending on what reoccurring mandate there is on the schedule.
I understand the arm of the UN is also calling for a $2.5 trillion economic aid package for these developing countries. The world feels this, but those countries that do not have the resources of a country like the United States are apparently really going to have a challenge here.
You know, you're right, and that's where we are very fortunate that we have the World Bank and the IMF engaged, and both are understanding the needs. The Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, makes that, you know, is very transparent and is one of the most accountable individuals as far as making certain that whether he's speaking with the UN Security Council in asking for additional aid, which again would require a meeting and a vote, or if he's speaking with the World Bank or the IMF, everyone understands the needs. And what we're trying to do is to mitigate the ceasefire situation, because we can have all the aid, but if we don't have a ceasefire, we can't get in to actually help the people. And we've got areas of critical situations now with refugees, whether it's Yemen, Syria, Lebanon, Libya. I mean, we have some real areas in conflict that we've got to focus on. And we mustn't forget Venezuela and all of the refugees going into Latin America at the moment, and also the Pacific Islands. So basically, we have a real global issue here with making certain that we try to mitigate this virus.
Tell us about a donation to New York City. I know that of course, is the world headquarters of the UN, and there were some masks that you were able to get to New York.
Well, I have to give all the credit to the Secretary General, because he called early last week, and with the renovations within the United Nations Secretariat, we discovered that there were 250,000 surgical medical grade masks, and we were able to facilitate, expedite this with our legal team at the USUN, with the mayor's office, with the governor's office, in order to facilitate the mask being put into the hospitals that were in the most need. And as you well know, the president has reacted very quickly to Governor Cuomo's request. We just saw a field hospital being constructed, I think, within 3 days in Central Park. We just saw the new field hospital, not the field hospital, but the new ship come in, which will be taking care of people that are non-COVID-19 patients, because heart attacks and other issues don't stop because of this virus. So we have to really keep in mind there are people, women having babies, there are children that are ill, there are people suffering other ailments, that cancer or whatever, that they need to continue on with their treatment. So the president has reacted very quickly, very smartly, and been working together with all of the governors in every state.
Ambassador, could you imagine serving at a historic time like this as the UN ambassador at a time when, without any question, the world needs to come together like it maybe never has in our lifetime, certainly?
That's an excellent point, and what I can't imagine is serving at a time such as this as the U.S. UN ambassador representing the Trump administration. I can't imagine representing any other administration than an individual where the president has put together an incredible task force led by the vice president and Dr. Deborah Birx and Dr. Fauci. I mean, it's an incredible group of people that all have different expertise, as you well know, and that have come together. The president listens to them. Yes, he does make the decisions at the end of the day and what he feels is best for this country. I also want to compliment our governor, Andy Beshear, and how he has taken this on very early on in all the precautionary measures, and that has really mitigated the issue. No, I can't imagine at a time like this, but I'm very happy that serving underneath this administration and being a Kentuckian and serving with Andy Beshear, with our governor.
I want to ask you that, Ambassador. You are a Kentuckian. This is a very difficult time in the Commonwealth, as it is in other places. Businesses are idle. Many are trying to sign up for unemployment right now, that the system is overwhelmed, and we're going to have a difficult way forward. What words of encouragement might you have for your fellow Kentuckians?
As I've told my children and my grandchildren, this is a time that with how busy we all are with our children and our lives, and people, no longer sit down together for meals and have discussions, embrace this moment. Embrace time to sit down with your family. We want, as you know, to leave the world a better place. And now, as parents, we are really going to leave our children and our grandchildren and our loved ones a better equipped place in order to handle, because this is not the last pandemic that we will be facing. And I think the other thing for me is that I am not always one to pick up the phone and check on some of my relatives, just because, just like I said, we all get so busy. So just pick up the phone and call someone that you haven't spoken to in some time, or a shut-in that may be in your neighborhood. But I'm really trying to take this time and stress to my children who have to my daughter who has a child. Just sit down with your family. It's important. Prepare a meal. That's something I think is a silver lining in all of this. And I really stress, even for myself, to take time every day just to sit and have a conversation with my husband. So this has been the silver lining, I think, for all families.
In other words, this will change us for the better in some ways going forward?
Absolutely. And I also think, thanks to you and other people in the media, it's been a time that you all have been very transparent. You haven't hyped up the news. You've been obviously honest, which sometimes has been quite frightening, because this is a very frightening time for everyone. But we have depended upon being inside our homes and being, our social distances and quarantine. We've depended on the likes of people like you to be able to deliver to us what the necessary news are. So please continue what you're doing, because in some areas, as you know, the social media is the only way for people to gather the news. And so this is their only lifeline. So I owe you a debt of gratitude for being able to come into people's living rooms, in their family rooms, via the radio, their iPads. So thanks to you, you've been able to keep people connected also.
Ambassador, we appreciate that, your generous comments, and thank you for your generosity with your time as well, and what you're doing to try to help coordinate this worldwide response to what is a historic and frightening time, frankly, for many people. Thank you.
Thank you. But we're Kentuckians, and we will get through this, as you well know, and there is no better place to be as in the United States and to be an American citizen. And so we have all come together, and thank goodness, right, that we have this strong leadership, both in the United States and in our state and in our families. This has really caused everybody to step up. So thanks for having me, and thank you again for all you're doing in order to deliver that connectivity into our homes.
Thank you.
Ambassador Kelly Nightcraft. Now, stay with us on Kentucky Newsmakers. We're coming back with Ashli Watts from the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce. She'll talk about what business is facing right now as many are trying to plot their way back. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Kentucky Newsmakers here on WKYT. The Kentucky Chamber of Commerce has been trying to assist and advise its businesses during this very unsettling time. How do they deal with workforce and safety and plot a way back when the pandemic is over? Ashli Watts, the CEO of the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce, she's joining us, video conferencing with us today from her kitchen, and we appreciate that very much. Ashli, thank you for being here. What is the pulse of the business?
Thank you for having me in these unusual circumstances.
Right. What would you say is the pulse of the business community right now during this major disruption?
It really is a major disruption. As we all know, many businesses from across the state have really just had to shut their doors completely. Many have retooled to kind of adapt to this new environment. But what we have been really amazed at is to see the strength of the business community come together, see how we're going to get out of this, see how we can, work with other manufacturers to make these PPEs, the masks, the gloves, etc. So even despite kind of the uncertainty and the turmoil that everyone is seeing, people really have come together to see how we can all help each other get out of this pandemic. It's a scary time. You can just look at the unemployment numbers and see that. But I think by joining together, the business community here in Kentucky has just really been amazing in making sure that they're leading the way and making sure that we get out of this in the quickest and safest way possible.
Yeah, and I know the Chamber has assisted with that. You have helped this team come together and sort of helped them coordinate. Tell us a little bit about those efforts.
So very early on during all of this, probably about 3 weeks ago, and I know it feels like much longer, the governor reached out to us and said we really need help with collecting masks and other equipment that healthcare providers need. And we know that many businesses here in Kentucky have access to some of those. And one example is that Toyota, for example, we sent out kind of an all call to businesses for the N95 mask, the mask that our healthcare providers really need. And within 2 or 3 hours, Toyota had driven 2,000 masks to the Chamber building in Frankfort to donate them. We've gotten businesses from all over Kentucky donating masks, gloves. Yesterday, the governor's office said we really need to get gloves. And so we contacted the Dental Association, Delta Dental, other companies to try to donate gloves. And so really it has been an all hands on deck approach to make sure that we can help the state get the supplies they need.
Actually, we know this is a very difficult time for businesses, and many business owners will have to make some difficult decisions. Some already have. They've had to let their workforces be furloughed or go to the unemployment. But as people begin to look beyond this, do you think most business owners right now are coming up with some strategy for a comeback?
I think so, and business owners are usually entrepreneurs and are pretty resilient. And so what we're finding is just when you look at restaurants across the state and how they've been able to adapt to this new reality and still stay open for business. We've also found that, many businesses are actually picking up business. If you look at an Amazon or grocery stores, et cetera, pizza delivery. And so we've actually seen where many businesses have had to shut their doors temporarily. Other businesses are hiring. And so we've partnered with the state on a Who's Hiring campaign to make sure that those that are looking for employment do know that there still are jobs out there if they choose to go down that path. And so we've partnered with the state to provide a list of all the businesses in Kentucky, employers in Kentucky that are hiring. But I do think they're being creative and resilient. And really, I think now that we're several weeks into this, it's probably start time that we kind of look at how we get out of this and how we get our economy back on track once all this is done. The federal legislation, frankly, is a great way to make sure that happens. Many of our small businesses are taking advantage of those small business loans and making sure that they can keep their doors open, keep paying their people that are on staff. The enhanced unemployment insurance benefit is a great resource for business who, of no fault of their own, have to lay people off. There are supplies, luckily, through this federal piece of legislation that help them make their employees whole. So using that federal piece of legislation is what we're kind of telling businesses. Make sure that you know about it, you're educated about it, because that's going to really be key to making sure that we have a strong recovery and can come out on the other side of this.
What kind of feedback are you getting from employers who are having many of their employees work from home? This was not, this is by necessity, not by design. It was designed very quickly in many cases, but no doubt some have enjoyed the flexibility, and in some cases we're hearing that, productivity is quite good in these circumstances.
You are exactly right. And I can kind of use myself as an example. We have about 40 staff at the chamber, and we've pretty much typically worked in the office. And I usually work in the office, and I have been amazed the last couple of weeks of the amount of work that we have been able to produce and kind of the timeliness of all of it when everyone's been working from home. And I always think that, thank goodness we're in this day and age living through this with technology. We have Zoom meetings or kind of online meetings all the time. I can talk to you just like I am here from my kitchen. I think it's a balance for many employees of also now homeschooling their children from home. But I know just for me as an employer, and I'm hearing this across the state, it has made us really rethink working from home. And once we come out of this, kind of depending on what happens, I do think it's going to be a perk that many employers will look at for their employees.
I mean, we've all become real multitaskers here in recent weeks, no doubt about that. When you and I spoke just a few weeks ago, the economy was whirring right along. Things were looking very good in this country, and then this is very sudden. Do you think the sudden nature of how we got here will be as sudden in coming out of it? Do you think we can get out of this situation relatively quickly once there is some kind of all clear on COVID-19?
That's a great question, and a lot of people have compared it to post 9/11 or after the recession, and unfortunately this is just a completely different circumstance that we've never had to really tackle. And so looking at the unemployment numbers, looking at the businesses that have been shut down, and also, we have to this is a health epidemic, and so looking at the number of deaths and the number of illnesses across the state and the country, I don't think we can just kind of flip a switch and get back on track. It's going to take, I think, many phases, and many of that has come from the federal government with some of their assistance they've been able to provide for businesses and small businesses and the unemployed. But I think it's yet to be seen on how we kind of get things back on track. The good news is, though, I think through all of this, we've all been fairly resilient as a business community. And before this, we're in a very strong economy. And so that's the good news, is that when we happened into this, we were in such a strong economy that hopefully we can bounce back. And so I think it's just kind of left to be seen how quickly that happens. I think it depends on how long all of this lasts as well. But I do think that it has helped us to come from a very strong economy.
About a minute left, Ashli. Let me ask you this. What would you say to business owners right now about what they should be doing at this moment in terms of maybe contacting their financial institutions, making plans about going forward, and how can the Kentucky Chamber assist them in any of that?
Absolutely. And the number one thing I would tell to any business or employer in Kentucky is to be educated. Make sure you know what resources are out there. We have all the resources that really you would need on our website, kychamber.com. We have information about small business loans, on unemployment insurance, on all of that. And right now, there are tools that can help businesses through all this. You just need to make sure that you're educated on them and know how to use them. And we will be here to help anyone in Kentucky that needs that help. And our website, kychamber.com, has all of those resources.
All right. Ashli, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it very much, and we'll continue to check in on you. And we hope you'll stay with us on WKYT's Kentucky Newsmakers. The HUD Secretary, Ben Carson, will talk about a Lexington connection when we come back. Welcome back to Kentucky Newsmakers. The COVID-19 pandemic has some people concerned about housing right now, but a program here in Lexington is receiving some national attention. It's the Housing and Urban Development's Neighbors Helping Neighbors campaign. It's going on at the Hope Center in Lexington. It was designated as an Envision Center because of the way it helps people who are also assisted by HUD. Joining us to talk about that program is HUD Secretary, former brain surgeon, former presidential candidate Ben Carson. Dr. Carson, thank you very much for being with us. We appreciate it very much.
My pleasure.
What is Neighbors Helping Neighbors doing for people here in Kentucky?
Well, not only in Kentucky but across the nation, what we are doing is highlighting what people are doing for each other to remind us, to focus on the good in our communities and to show gratitude to our neighbors who are doing everything they can to make a difference. And, here in Lexington, of course, the Hope and Vision Center is running one of the largest emergency homeless shelters in the state of Kentucky and tending to the needs of those who frequently are forgotten, particularly at a time like this when so many people are concerned about their own well-being. They say, well, I don't have time to deal with them. I may lose my own home. Mm-hmm. But, we want to really kind of look at things from everybody's perspective, recognizing that, homeowners are concerned about being able to pay their mortgage, renters are concerned about possible eviction, the banks and the servicers are concerned about being able to make the P&I payments that they owe. So, it really goes right down the line, and that's why you really have to have a more comprehensive program. But it starts right with each one of us caring about our neighbors.
Mr. Secretary, we've had a very hot real estate market here in this part of the country going into this, as did much of the nation. We were making progress on the homeless issue in Lexington, and now this. And as people today search for some hope, what can you tell us? What will HUD and the other efforts of the federal government to do to try to help people get back on track?
Well, first of all, people need to recognize that this is temporary. This too will pass. We know it's going to pass. And, just look at all the progress that's been made in terms of the research about this particular pathogen. And, utilizing convalescent plasma therapy is showing great promise. Utilizing the hydroxychloroquine and erythromycin combination. And if we really start using these kinds of things and some of the other things that will be discovered, I think we will accelerate it. And people are learning themselves a kind of hygiene that will help slow down the spread as well. But the government, of course, and HUD in particular, has, asked for forbearance, asked all their services, asked the public housing authorities, anybody who is receiving support from the government, be compassionate and look for flexibilities rather than thinking about evicting people or foreclosing on people. In fact, we forbid that to happen, at least for a 60-day period, and it will be extended as necessary. Having said that, I would emphasize that people who are not adversely impacted who still have a job, please don't, try to take advantage of that situation. Just go ahead and pay your mortgage and pay your rent, because, that lightens the burdens on all of your fellow taxpayers and all your fellow Americans. So those of us who can do that absolutely should. But, we have provided all kinds of guidance, particularly to the continuum of care programs that are concerned with the homeless, in terms of what to do proactively. Because you don't want to be in a panic because somebody in the homeless community contracts the disease. You want to have a plan in place ahead of time with the local health authorities and with the state health department. And so, that was done weeks ago. And, of course, the federal government has now provided a tremendous amount of financial support. HUD is getting an additional $12 billion, $3 billion of which we are dispersing almost immediately based on the formula grants that we have with CDBG all over the country and emergency solutions grants. So that money is getting out very quickly.
All right. Mr. Secretary, obviously a time where we need calm and compassion and cooperation. We appreciate you checking in with us here in Kentucky. And as you said, we'll get through this, and it is temporary. We appreciate you very much.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you very much. Take care.
You as well. And that is Kentucky Newsmakers. Thank you for joining us. We hope you join us bright and early this week on WKYT This Morning, and updates always on WKYT.com. Make it a good week ahead.